Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. Today's video is going to be my COVID story while 6 months pregnant and also getting pneumonia. On my other channel, which I'll link right here, I asked you guys if you wanted me to go through everything that we went through and what I took and did to try to get over the COVID and the pneumonia very quickly, being pregnant, and you said yes. So I'm gonna do my COVID story and hopefully it'll help someone out there. I want to first say I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a medical professional at all. So the things that I am going to suggest that I did, or I'm going to say that I did, you have to do your own research. You have to be liable for yourself. So this is what worked for me. This is what I felt comfortable with. And so you do your research and all the things. I just want to throw that out there. It was a week before Christmas, and the Friday the kids got home, the Friday before Christmas, Chris came in and said that he wasn't feeling well, or he had called me, said he wasn't feeling well and he wanted to go get tested. I asked him why, and he said because he was in contact with someone. So I was like, well, were you in close quarters with them? He's like, always with a mask, but I'm not feeling too well, so I just want to go to make sure. There were several people in our church that had come down with it. I had actually spoken to the wives and they were like, it's pretty mild. One person said I had it for 7 days, no big deal. The other person was like 3 or 4, no big deal. My son had it, he just had a fever. My husband had it, he just felt tired. And so I was kind of thinking like, okay, so it's really spreading around. It's not that scary anymore. But still, even though I felt that way, I always wore a mask when I went out in public. I always wash my hands, teach my kids to do the same thing. We have limited our exposure to people. We stay 6 feet away from people, and we haven't been doing any get-togethers. So we have been following all of the guidelines, and we have been very diligent since March when everything started. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Chris is also an AC contractor, so he's an essential worker. He has to go to work, but he always has his hand sanitizer and he always wears his mask. We take it very seriously. I have a mother with cancer and also all kinds of immuno issues, and his mother is also a survivor for cancer, and the dad is in bad health. So we always took this very, very seriously. So I just want to throw that out there. So he's like, I'm going to go get tested before I get home because you're pregnant and I just want to make sure. So he had gone. He had only just been feeling a little off. It's like he explained it. And they did the, I think it's called the PCP test. I might be incorrect, but it's the one where they put it all the way back in your nose. That came back negative. So I was like, well, he said, well, she said that it's very likely that it's too soon. So by Saturday, he's like, oh yeah, I definitely have something. 100% I've got something. Now, I take that very lightly because I'm sorry, but he's a guy, and when he gets even a little cold, he's just not okay, and that's not being whatever, that's just the way he handles things. So we handle things a little bit differently, so I always just kind of tread lightly. But I went ahead and started making him soup and stuff like that. Sunday, I started feeling a sore throat and congestion and just a little bit of fatigue, but I am pregnant, and I did just film a whole video the day before, so I was like, oh, maybe I do, maybe I don't. But just in case, I started loading up on my supplements. I take probiotics every single day. I take one in the morning, one at night. I take a cleanse type stuff from Plexus that I really like. I also take my prenatal vitamins, and I loaded up. I went ahead and ordered some vitamin C, some vitamin D, some elderberry, and I was like being very cautious about the foods that I was eating just to make sure, and starting to load up on fluids just in case. So by Sunday, I was feeling fatigued, didn't pay much attention to it. By Monday, I definitely felt like, at this point, at Monday, Chris was, so this is like the 3rd day in, body aches, shivers, and his body aches were really bad, mild fever. It was just like that kind of stuff. And so for me, then I started feeling like, okay, I definitely feel off. I feel that off feeling, but it feels like a cold. It feels like I'm getting a cold. The sore throat, the congestion, and a little bit of body aches, but not too bad. It just felt like, I said, a cold. Didn't even feel like a bad flu. So by Tuesday, I was like, okay, I've got whatever this is. I took a Tylenol. It broke the very, very like 99 fever, and it took the body aches away, and I felt like myself again. My lungs felt clear. I felt okay, except for I obviously had like a cold or something. It wasn't alarming at all. Now, Chris was over there shivering with a hoodie on, completely beside himself, feeling like he was dying. And again, I kind of take that lightly, but he was like, these are the worst body aches I've ever had in my life. And I'm like, you're gonna be okay. I continued to make the soups and give him all of the fluids and make sure that he had all his supplements. And I just kind of kept my eye on him. So by Tuesday, he was like, this is so bad, I gotta go get tested again. But I guess so many cases were coming up that it was hard to get in to get tested. So he went and did a blood test because the nasal swab, they were out of them. So they did a blood test on him, and they were like, comes back negative. So he's like, there's no way I don't have COVID. There's just no way. The way I feel, it's different. And I was like, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. So by Wednesday, for me, and this is the week before Christmas, my body hurt so bad. But again, my lungs felt clear. I had a sore throat. There was some congestion, but it still didn't feel severe, but the body aches were pretty bad. I took 2 Tylenol, and that was it. I felt totally fine. That lasted every single day until about Monday for me. And just consistent. I got my body aches, felt like I had a little bit of a fever, just kind of felt super tired, super duper tired, which when you're 6 months pregnant, that's kind of comes a part of the territory. And Chris was having some good parts of the day and then being real sick again, and some good parts of the day and real sick again. So the symptoms for both of us were just body aches, mild fever, sore throat, congestion, and extremely fatigued. We took our Tylenol, we felt better, and then it would start back up again. Nothing alarming, nothing severe. And I even said to my sister-in-law, I was like, this is the mildest thing I've ever had. If this is COVID, I am so happy to be done with this. My lungs feel clear. I had, just in case, my nebulizers out, my medicine. I had been doing a ton of fluids. I had been eating pineapple chunks for my lungs. I had been taking all the supplements that I had already mentioned. Like, I was juicing carrots, celery, and onion in a pot of chicken broth, getting it super soft, putting it in the NutriBullet, emulsifying it, and then drinking that for days. I will say I did lose my sense of smell, very mild, and sense of taste, very mild. Chris lost his completely. Like, I could like and get a little bit of something, but Chris lost his completely. So I could like do that and kind of get a little sense of something that I was eating. And there were headaches, but again, not that big a deal. I guess I could consider it like a flu, but a very mild flu. I've had some really rough flus. That was pretty mild. In the duration of the week, Liam came down with it. He had nothing but a fever. He slept for about a day, and then he was fine. He ended up with a little bit of a cough and a sore throat. Josiah came home with it. He had a fever. It was about 100, almost 101. I can kind of feel their head and know how bad it is. He went to sleep. The next day he was fine. This entire time Noah only had a runny nose. And by Christmas Day, Drew had 102. He was chill all day long. It lasted. He had the body ache, sore throat. The fever went away in about a day. We gave him his Tylenol or ibuprofen, and he was fine. So we honestly, as Chris was approaching his 7th day, he was like, I'm starting to feel better. He still felt unwell a part of the day, but then he would have good parts of it. So we were like, okay, light at the end of the tunnel. I was also starting to feel better. Drew was starting to feel better. Everybody else was, Liam was back to his old self, Josiah was back to his old self, and Noah had nothing but a runny nose this entire time, so he was always his old self. So his same old self. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna just assume we had it, no big deal, and we move on with our life. By Monday, I started cleaning, getting up and moving around more, and I was like, okay. But I started feeling really tired, like next level tired. So I listened to my body, still taking my supplements, still juicing, still doing all those things. And then by Tuesday, so Christmas has already passed, the week has already passed. We are now a full 7 days from when I started feeling the body aches. I started feeling unwell about Sunday. Body aches didn't come about Tuesday. So for me, it's a full 7 days. The next Tuesday after Christmas, I'm like, I'm so tired. I could hardly do my video, and my lungs felt not tight, but they felt almost hot. I really can't even explain it. They just felt different. And I told Chris, I said, my lungs just feel weird. I don't understand. I'm still doing my inhalers. I'm still doing what I had to do. And so when I went to sleep, when I woke up that Tuesday morning, like I said, I'm sorry. It was Monday night. My lungs started feeling weird. Yes, sorry. It was Monday night. My lungs started feeling weird. Tuesday was the full 7 days. All night when I was sleeping Monday, I would wake up and like take a deep breath and like, that doesn't feel right. And then Tuesday morning I woke up and I coughed and there was blood in there, and I thought, okay, what is that? So I was in the shower actually, and I saw it and I couldn't really tell, so then I coughed in my hand as nasty as that is, and I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, that's blood. Probably from the inflammation. I'm not going to worry about it. Let's see if it goes away. Throughout the day, it subsided, no big deal. Wednesday came. So now for me, I'm on day 9, I'm on day 8. Wednesday came for me, and more blood, coughing up more blood. And then my lungs felt really weird. And I'm an asthmatic, so I know when my lungs feel tight or when I need to get out of like an area, if that's irritating me, but this was just different. So I called, or I actually texted a friend of mine, and I told her, she's a PA, physician's assistant, and she said, well, because you're pregnant, there's a likelihood of clots, and you need to go get checked out just to make sure, but it's probably just the inflammation. So as much as I didn't want to do it, I took myself to the hospital, told them what was going on. They immediately did blood work to make sure I wasn't having any kind of clots or anything with the pregnancy, and also did the COVID test, a whole entire blood panel for everything, including all like flus and stuff like that. So a couple hours later, they come back and they're like, have they talked to you yet? And I said, no. And they're like, can you put your mask over your face? Because when they left the room, they said, you can take your mask off to breathe. And so he comes in, he's like, you're positive for COVID. And I was like, okay. And then he's like, but the doctor's going to come and talk to you. So when the doctor came in, he's like, they told you? And I said, yeah. He had like one of those big old masks on and everything. And he's like, you're definitely positive. You're not having any blood clots. We ran the test. He's like, but your lungs look like that of a COVID patient. And then I started to panic. I started to get really, really, really scared. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he's like, you have pneumonia in your lungs. I think he said eosinophils or inceptophils, or I can't think of the word right now. Comment below if you know what I'm talking about. But basically, like, you have like little, I think it's evoli or eviola. I can't, little like circular things all around your lungs, and they produce, I don't know, you'll have to look it up. But he's like, you definitely have pneumonia. He's like, but your oxygen is really good. And he just kept staring at my oxygen level. He's like, your oxygen being this good with you being pregnant, COVID, and pneumonia, he's like, I'm gonna send you home. I'm gonna send you home, but here's like a little COVID pack, and it had a medicine bottle, some details, mask, more sanitizer. It had a oxygen reader for your finger. He said, if this thing goes, I need you to check your oxygen. If it goes under 87, you come back immediately. And I was like, okay. So with all of the fear swirling around COVID, I honestly, you might think it's stupid. Maybe it's my anxiety. I don't know. But I was like, I really thought I was going to die. I really did. All of the fear around it. And it's like, you have COVID. I'm like, I can do that. Then when you hear that you have pneumonia or anything like that with it, then I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be one of those horror stories? He was like, you need to be careful with the pregnancy. And He's like, this is different for you because you're pregnant. We just don't know a lot. So you need to go home, lots of fluids, and you need to be careful and come back if your oxygen goes under 87. So I get my stuff. He's like, I'm gonna give you an antibiotic just to make sure there's no secondary infections. Go home and rest, and lots of fluid. So they wheelchaired me out of there. I boo-hooed all the way home. I was devastated. I was freaking out. And I immediately put my prescription in, and I started taking Ceftinar because it was safe during pregnancy. So I started taking the antibiotic that's safe during pregnancy, and went home and was like determined to just rest and relax and take really good care of myself. Immediately, people from the church, after I had posted that I had had it, reached out. They were delivering, because Chris told them that I was eating really healthy. They were eating like they were sending pineapples and stuff for the kids and chicken noodle soup, and my friends were bringing homemade chicken noodle soup, and I mean, they were such a blessing, and it was so wonderful. I will say that throughout the whole process of having COVID, I had no appetite whatsoever, but I forced myself to eat. The sore throat did subside a couple days afterwards. I continued to have a runny and stuffy nose. It wasn't severe at all. I think it's more severe with a cold. But the thing about that, I will say that's different, the experience was different, because I know what it feels like to have a cold. I know what it feels like to have a flu. For me, this is my personal experience, COVID was worse than a cold, not as bad as a flu. For me, with the flu, I'm done. I'm on the couch for about 7 days straight. I can't move. Tylenol hardly even breaks a fever for me. I'm over there like chills and shivering. It wasn't like that for me. What was so different about COVID for me is after that 7-day mark, like a ton of bricks, my lungs were not working. And that is what I found most frightening about it. I went from, oh, this is super mild. I actually feel really good. I'm not eating inflammatory foods. I'm taking all my supplements. I'm like really like taking this hardcore and serious. And then boom, in one day, it was, holy moly, I'm coughing up blood. And that is why I think COVID can't be taken lightly. As I had mentioned before, we always wore a mask. We always followed protocol. We did not go out and about and do things with people. We've been pretty chill since March of 2020. And whenever I went out, I had a mask. Whenever I got back into my car, I put hand sanitizer on my hands. Chris did the same thing. My kids wear a mask when they go to school. We've done everything we're supposed to do. I can honestly say, looking back, there was nothing we could have done differently, honestly. I cleaned my house, I sterilized, I do all the things. But we got it. We got it, and I don't know how, but we got it. And like I said, I can't think of any way we would have done it differently. But even though we have followed all the protocols, and I took it very seriously, I now understand how scary the virus is, because you go from, for me, my experience, you go from, oh, this is very mild, to I've got pneumonia and I'm coughing up blood. So I can definitely see why it can be scary. I do want to add, I have asthma that's controlled. Josiah, my 8-year-old, has asthma as well, and it only gave him a fever. He didn't even cough. Liam, who doesn't have asthma, did get a dry cough. Chris had a very dry cough about 10 days. Day 10, a very, very dry cough. I didn't develop the dry cough until, I would say, about day 10 as well. And it was just not a lot of mucus, but just dry. And for Chris, it was a constant tickle. For me, it was just dry. It was just a dry cough, and it got to about day 14 for both of us, Chris and I. It was funny how we both followed by day 14, we had like similar symptoms. The coughing was nonstop. It was nonstop. Our head would hurt from the coughing so much. Chris coughed more than me, I can honestly say that. He did. And it was intense for him. I only had about 2 days of the intense coughing. Chris had about 4. So, but like I said, it was like 1 to 2, like day 1 to 2, I don't feel well. Yeah, definitely I've got something. Day 3, body aches and fever. 3 to about 7, so that's about 4 days. It was absolutely the same, no intensity, no severity of symptoms. For me, by day 8 is when I started coughing up blood. For Chris, he didn't get to that point. He just started doing all of the dry coughing and hacking and all of that stuff. By day 14, he felt much better. He felt much, much better. He still has a cough, but it's so like just not as consistent. But I would say for me too, by day 14, I felt pretty darn good. But I also was taking the antibiotics, and my lungs were feeling much better. So that's kind of how it goes. I would say COVID is about a 1 to 14 day experience. If you're lucky, you can get through with it in about 7 days. Now I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the things that I did to help me get over it very quickly. So obviously, you know, I'm pregnant and my belly is a little bit bigger. So many of my friends, including my friend April, shout out to April if you are watching, I love you. Thank you for just being there for me. She is a respiratory therapist, and she, as soon as she found out I had it, I mean, she jumped on the phone with me and was telling me everything that I needed to do, sent me turmeric superfoods and beet powder and water bottles, and she was like, let me send you a reader for your finger, but I had already had one. I mean, she was just there. And so she's like, you need to lay on your belly as much as possible. COVID patients need to be on their stomach. So, and multiple people had told me that. So I at first had pillows to kind of around me so I could like have a little spot in the middle for my belly. And so I laid on my belly a lot, 30-minute increments, because it kind of started getting uncomfortable, but I laid on my belly as much as possible when I got home from the hospital, which would have been day 8. So that was something that helped me a ton, and it did make my lungs feel better. So if you have COVID, spend as much time as you possibly can on your belly. Also, tons of fluids, tons of vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. I also took quercetin and bromelain, I think it's called, and I will insert all of that. Again, a ton of probiotics. I juiced, I ate my chicken soup, and then like I had said, I had taken onion, celery, and carrots, boiled it in the pot of soup for about an hour, and then put it in my NutriBullet, and then back into the juice or the broth, mixed it together, and I just sipped on that for about 2 days. And I ate really good. Pineapple chunks. Like I said, I didn't have much of an appetite, but I had soup every single day. We did do an echinacea tea with manuka honey in it. Manuka is so good. It's an antibacterial and antiviral, so that was so good. No coffees. A lot of hot liquids that they said. I had read, don't do a lot of cold things. Do hot liquids for the lungs. If you do end up having pneumonia, you're gonna be exhausted, you're gonna be tired. If you're sitting and watching TV, sit upright. Do not lay flat as much as possible, and walk during the commercials. Just a quick little walk. You want to keep the blood moving. Lay on your belly, sleep on your belly if you can. Lay on your belly as much as possible. And those are the things that I did that helped me, excuse me, helped me get over the pneumonia. I felt like I was better from the pneumonia in about 4 days after being diagnosed to it. So those are the things that I did, and I would just encourage you guys, if you do find out you have COVID, don't panic. It doesn't mean that things are gonna end for you or go poorly, but just be mindful, just be aware of what your body needs. Lay on your belly, lots of hot liquids, juice, minimize inflammatory foods. So I didn't do any milks or glutens or ton of carbs. I didn't do anything like that because I was serious. I was really serious about this. I got serious about this as soon as I thought that we may have had COVID. And that was for me like day 2. Once I was like, yeah, I think we've got it. I started loading up on all the vitamin C, vitamin D, the zinc, the elderberry. I started drinking all the juices. I started eating the pineapple. I started doing all that. But then when I realized I had the pneumonia, that's when I started laying on my belly. I started walking outside. I sat outside a lot to get fresh air in my lungs. I actually did lung exercises even though it hurt to breathe in and I coughed every time. I did lung exercises. I held my hands up like this and like this and like this to open up my lungs. I did not ever lay on my back. So those are the things that I did to help me get over COVID. I hope that they help you. Do your research, be mindful of your body, be courteous of others. Feel free to ask me questions down below. I'm not the best at telling stories because I'm like all over the place, but I did my best. So that is my COVID story. Baby girl is fine. It doesn't seem to have any effects on her except she is measuring just a little bit small, and I think that's from the lack of food in those 2 weeks because I just wasn't hungry. I did my best, but otherwise she's totally healthy and totally normal. So, you know, I will say I feel like I do have like a little bit, I've read about it, a little COVID fog in my brain. It's like it's not really working all that much, but that could be the pregnancy as well. I am feeling about 75%, 80% better. Still really tired, but that could be the pregnancy. My lungs feel completely back to normal, minus the asthma, but I'm so thankful we got over it. We have the antibodies, and now we just have to continue to be diligent and vigilant and safe. So I hope the same for you guys. Be safe out there. I love you all so, so much. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope you enjoyed this video. In my next video, I will actually talk to you how we were able to choose the gender of our baby. So I love you all so much. Bye.